Hello everybody, Average Gamer, and welcome to another episode of Let's Talk Mechwarrior Online. In this episode, power creep. What is power creep and why is it kind of bad, but manageable? So power creep is in all games when it comes to when things are released over time. So Mechwarrior Online has that problem, Armored Warfare has that problem, World of Tanks has that problem, a lot of other games have it, even if they release anything long term. Hell, even things like Fallout 4 has that problem. Basically, that's where you release things down the road that are more powerful than things that were released before it. So, for example, it has to be done in certain games, like things like Fallout, like your RPGs like Fallout 4 and your Elder Scrolls games, where things later on released have to be stronger than they would be on release, like the initial release date, because players that are playing the game are already that more powerful. They're levels 60, 70, 80, 100, what have you. So things coming out have to be more powerful than they would be at the initial release date of the game. Now, how this it happens to things like in Modern Warfare or Armored Warfare and World of Tanks is that they release tanks because everything's broken up into tiers. So they release another light tank, for example, tier 1 light tank, 3 or 4 years into release. It turns out that tank has better armor, better mobility, better weapons. It's more, they have experience by that point of designing better tanks, more efficient tanks. And it ends up blowing every other tank out of the water. I think that happened with the Lich tank, I believe it was. So that tank, they removed out of circulation because it's just stupid. And then they buffed it even more by taking the doors off the sides. So you can't even penetrate the doors. So, how this affects Mechwarrior Online? Well, Mechwarrior Online, the way it affects Mechwarrior Online is that over time, the more, basically, mechs that are released now, we'll say, are more powerful or more, we'll say, combat efficient than mechs that were released, say, a year ago, 2 years ago. The way this usually is noticed is armor values, weapon quirks are not needed on newer mechs, as they are needed on older ones to kind of bring them up, to kind of drag them online. Best example is, in my eyes, the two quintessential heavy hitters of the game right now. We're going to go to Assault here. We're going to look at the Atlas, and the Kodiak. Both are 100 tons. Both, I only got the base package. But when you look at it, right, the GDC, for example, has ECM, but it's got 2 missile, 2 ballistic, and 3 missile slots. Close to what the Kodiak 1 does, right? It's got 1 ballistic, 9 energy, and 2 missile. So it kind of knocks off the ECM, throws on some more energy, but loses a ballistic. Actually, you know what? It's the RS is actually more like the Kodiak 2. 1 ballistic, 4 energy, 2 missile for the RS. Well, the Kodiak 2 is 6 energy, 1 missile, and 1 ballistic. So, the reason why I'm bringing up these two is because the Atlas I believe was on launch, is when it was released, which was a couple years ago. So it's been around. It's, the quintessential walk in, take a lot of damage, deal a lot of damage, and 9 times out of 10 don't survive the match. Because you're the one everyone's shooting at. Kodiak was just released in the last little while, and it's supposed to be the exact same way. Now, how does power creep affect these two? Well, I know some people will say you're doing apples and oranges because they both use different quote-unquote tech, different weapons and different things like that, but that is my point. So for the longest time, the Atlas and the Direwolf were the 2 mechs that would always face off one another. Those were the biggies. Those were your heavies. The Direwolf had, I think it's a 10-ton less amount, if I'm not mistaken. No, it's 100 tons. Never mind. I'm wrong. So it had, same tonnage amounts. All that stuff with the Atlas. It could put more weapons on it, but it had the offset of it being slow. It came out with the fact that it is basically the Atlas of the Inner Sphere, right? Or for the clans. Lots of weapons, take a lot of damage, but if you focus fire it, it's going down fast. Now, what happens is you have something like the Kodiak that comes out. Long time after everything else is out. It can go faster. It's got better armor. It's got better hard points where the weapons are located. It's got a better look to it. It's got a better geometry, meaning that the where in like those spots it can be shot are they're more efficiently designed, and the way it's overall just designed itself. So on a scale of 1 to 10, where the Atlas on most things would score 8.5 to 9 on, the Kodiak here would default to 10 on most and maybe 9s on others. So for example, in field of view, what you can see, Kodiak, not that great. Where the Atlas, very good. So it's offset on certain things, but the mech is definitely a lot better, right? It's a lot more powerful. I know this is an extreme example. We're going to get in the next example. So the next example is lights. So for lights, as the power creep has occurred, it's mostly affected, well, the inner sphere, right? So for the inner sphere, we got, fire starters, the Janitors, the Panthers, the Ravens, etc., etc. A fire starter or even a spider, for example, it can be taken out pretty quickly. You can run them down really quick if you're smart and see where they're going, cut them off, and really, really cut them up. Same with a Raven. But then you have the most recent lights, where being the Wolfhound and the Panther, where they're a little slower, but they're a lot more armored. So they're the opposite of what's going on, right? They've gotten a little bit more powerful. They're getting more powerful. Then you have something like the Arctic Cheetah, which is weapons-wise doesn't have as good weapons, but yet again, still lots of armor, a lot very maneuverable. Jump jets, can run and jump like a motherfucker. And over time, the light mechs are getting more and more efficient, causing mechs that are older to kind of drop by the wayside. So, for example, your fire starter, not really seeing them as much anymore, because though they're fast, they don't carry as good weapons. They don't have ECM. They don't. You can't really do what you want with them. I mean, I have them. I like them, but in the end, they're not as. If you had the choice between a Wolfhound and a fire starter, I would pick the Wolfhound every day, hands down. Wolfhound can carry not as much weapons, but can carry bigger weapons. And has better armor. It's slower, doesn't have jump jets, but carries better weapons. So, over time, newer mechs get better. Older mechs kind of fall by the wayside, which then causes PGI and other games, and obviously in other games as well, to buff and cause them to modify the older mechs and the newer one. So they look at the newer one and go, yeah, you know what, you're too good. You're too good. So the weapon quirks we gave you, of like say plus 15, plus 20 of this and that, we're going to reduce them by half, by at the least. While the newer mechs, or the older ones, sorry, we're going to increase them. So we're going to give you, better heat efficiencies and weapon ranges and, heat dissipation and all this stuff. Kind of make them a little bit better. Which I think is not a big deal. It's not a problem. I think it could be fixed rather easily. And that would be the tier system. So every other game that I play when it comes to games like this, so I have Armored Warfare and World of Tanks and War Thunder. All of them have multiple tiers of vehicles. So you can have a light tank that's a tier 10, but it's designed for that tier, right? So what you can do is break up all the lights into different tier numbers as the game goes out. So now if you're piloting a tier 10 assault, you'll only go against tier 10 lights. Then what you do is you slowly modify it, be like, well, the population isn't that big, so you only play people with the tiers, 3 above you or 3 below you, type thing. So out of 10, worst case scenario, you're playing a tier 7. Right? That's the max player that you'll play down, and vice versa. So what will that do? That will, in my eyes, help stop the power creep to a point. You can never really stop it, because when mechs come out, they're redesigned. The designers themselves are getting better at designing mechs, and as they're taking mechs out, the timeline itself is progressing. So basically what will happen is you'll pull out a mech that is just better, more efficient than all the other mechs currently being utilized in that class. So for lights, Poder de Cheetah, in my eyes, is right now the best light, since we're talking about lights. The fastest, most maneuverable. Every variant of it has ECM, and it can do lots of damage. You can support, you can do long range fire, you name it, it can do it. For Inner Sphere, in my eyes, it's the Wolfhound. Some people say it's the General Oxeye, which makes sense. But for me, it's definitely the Wolfhound. I do way better than I do in an Oxeye. So that's a couple of my main idea for it. Bring things out, kind of be like, okay, well, hold on. Now we're going to bring in a tier system, because now we're kind of getting later in the timeline. We're at 3,000. We're at 3020 or 3015 or something like that for some of these guys. So what we're going to do is we're going to modify things to bring in a bit of a tier system. So not only is there now the PSR, so you play players only within a certain ranking of you, but then also, hey, if you're flying a Raven is a tier 2 light mech. You'll only be playing tiers 1, obviously tier 2, tier 3, 4, and 5. That's it. Why was it tier 5 light? I don't know. Later on, obviously, they want to get further into the timeline, so there's going to be later on mechs like we'll say the Raven Mark II, for example, which would be a mech obviously way better than the current Raven. You wouldn't want to have two of them on the same, like having a Raven go up against a Raven Mark II. It's not fair. The Raven Mark II is the upgraded, better version of a Raven. So in the game's current system, it doesn't work, right? So a tier system would definitely bring things in a little bit better, and you have the ability to then upgrade your mechs as well. I don't mean upgrade them into the next tier, but I mean like go up to the next tier knowing, hey, I really, really played tier 1 or tier 2 or tier whatever really, really well with the following mechs. I played really good with tier 1's lights, tier 2, 3, 4 lights. I'm going to go to a tier 5 light. What is it? Oh, look at that. It's the Raven Mark II. Well, I've been playing the Raven Mark I for, the last few tiers now. I keep going back to it. I'm basically using it to make a lot of money to unlock other mechs and stuff like that. So there we go. Let's do that. That's an idea. How it could be introduced now, I don't know. But my theory is sooner or later they're going to have to release some sort of tier system. Mainly due to the fact that as they get later in the time zone, they're going to have to look into things. But until then, see you guys on the battlefield. Bye-bye.